Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy.
Happy New Year.
Okay, we're good to go.
All right. So good evening and welcome everybody to the January 12th, 2021 Board of Education Committee of the Whole meeting. Just to clarify, our board members and members of the district's administrative team are participating in the virtual meeting as there is currently a requirement on group sizes in an effort to limit the spread of COVID-19. As a public body, the Lake Bluff Board of Education is subject to the Illinois Open Meetings Act. Prior to this meeting, a public announcement was posted on our website announcing various participation options, including asking questions ahead of the meeting using a Google form. Alternatively, the public may participate using the Zoom app. While the requirements of the Open Meeting Act have been relaxed during the global pandemic, the members of the Board of Education take their responsibilities as board members who are responsible to the public no less seriously. Shelley, could you please call the roll?
Mark Barry,
Present.
Leanne Charlo, absent. Julie Gottschall,
Present.
John Morozen,
Present.
Andy Duran,
Present.
Richard Haig,
Present.
Ann Hill.
Present.
So we have a quorum, we can begin. We'll start with the opportunity for public comment. If anybody would like to make a public comment. Do we have any written comment, Shelley? I don't see any hands raised in the participants, but no, okay.
Nothing submitted on the Google form.
All right, so if anybody's watching or would like to, we're gonna have another opportunity for public comment when we close to the end of this, so stay tuned. So we are going to have a pretty brief conversation today, focused primarily around Dr. Leali's Return to Learn update, and it'll just, the purpose is to update all of you guys and make sure you're on the same page and the community gets as much information as possible. So basically turn this over to Lisa and let her roll.
Thanks, Mark. I have a couple quick notes just before we start into Return to Learn, just a couple of updates that I want to make sure everyone's aware of. One is that we did have a FOIA request asking for board member emails, and I didn't realize that they were not on the website available for folks right on our board member page. And so I did talk with Mark about the possibility of just going ahead and putting the board member emails on the website so that anyone could find those. We felt like it would be a good idea. I just wanted to also take the opportunity to thank you all for, I know that when people come to you with concerns, you ask them to, contact the folks that they really need to talk to, teachers, principals, myself. You've kept me in the loop. That chain of communication is really helpful. But I did want to just say that Mark has talked a few times about, emailing board members. We have the emails on the website. They weren't up until just
I always thought they were there, and I've been telling people to check our website. So
they're there now. And appreciated the question because we were able to make that change, and just wanted to let everyone know.
Probably won't change anything for you.
No, probably.
Do those have our Lake Bluff board emails on it?
Yes.
I never look at it. It's not good.
Well, and hopefully those will also be copied, to other folks. So hopefully you would get those. And I think it just helps also to keep the communication, board member communication, separate from any personal communication. If community members have your personal information, it just encourages folks to use that board member email and make sure that you're, kind of keeping separation is nice as well.
Well, if we get our emails get FOIA'd and you use a personal email, they then can get access to your personal emails and so that. Okay, thanks.
Okay, the next quick update is I just wanted to make sure everyone's aware. We know that our high school district, Lake Forest District 115, and their partner district 67 in Lake Forest have a lot of big changes coming up. I want to make sure that the community is aware that we have many existing lines of communication with our high school. I've done a lot of work to get myself up to speed since I arrived in July of how that articulation takes place. I feel like there's a lot that's already been done well, and there's definitely areas of improvement. But as they move forward and they're talking through some really big and challenging decisions, I just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware we are ready as a district and open to support their process however they need us or want us to participate. We feel like we're a really collaborative learning community, our communities together. We're looking forward to more opportunities to communicate and articulate with our high school and our neighbor district. And we, of course, want what's best for all of our students. So I just wanted to put that out there. We wish them the best of luck in their process, and we're here to support.
And tag teaming on that, I would suggest people consider putting on the calendar, their own calendars. Lake Forest 115 and 67 is having a joint meeting of both boards this Thursday night at 5 o'clock. The link is on either website to watch it live if you're interested. There will be discussing their shared services program. They hired a consultant to evaluate the future, help them evaluate the future of shared services. That spans the gamut of reworking it, remodeling it, blowing it up and starting from scratch, or creating two separate districts with two superintendents. They're looking at all the different possibilities. They have a consultant who's been working with them for the past 6 or 9 months. There is a video of a committee meeting between the two districts that took place last week that I previewed today, that they are going to condense and present to the entirety of both boards next week. So that has been a process that has been ongoing for months and months, that predates Mike Simick's resignation and predates their knowledge that Mike was leaving as of March 31st, which I don't know if you guys all know that. He's not only leaving at the end of the year, he's leaving early. He's leaving at the end of March. So that district has a lot to decide on in the next few months about pursuing a new superintendent or hiring an interim. And how does shared services fold into that? Because they've been having this conversation for months and months and months, and spent a lot of money on a consultant to help them wade through the big issues. And the reason we bring it to your attention is our kids all go through the high school. We've had some challenges with articulation in the past, getting to work with some of their administration for our team to partner with their administration. And anybody they bring in is going to affect the outcomes of our children. And I think we are wise to pay attention to it and be aware of the issues that they're working through. I guess I also have a question. First of all, are there any other questions? I think I've covered everything I know about that. It's this Thursday night at 5 o'clock, and the links are all on their website to pay attention to. I'd suggest the community pays attention to it too, because it affects the future of all our kids in our schools. So any questions I can answer, I'll try. I don't know if I know anything more. And then I have a question. If the board thinks that this meeting merits Lake Bluff District 65 attending, I'm going to watch either way, but if we should stand up during their public comment and offer any, support, assistance, help, something to show a sign of support that we want to work with them in partnership, is that something that sounds like an appropriate thing to do? Or do we step back and let them work through that and dive in later on?
Mark, what about having us be part of the shared services consulting arrangement? I mean, are there opportunities for us to insinuate our district and take advantage of some of the efficiencies that may be gained with that?
That conversation was had, if you recall, we had a conversation. I've been involved in it, and I did update the board on conversations about consolidation of the 3 districts. Those were some super preliminary conversations about consolidation of the 3 districts into one unit district. Mm-hmm. And that then got sidetracked by 67 and 115's pursuit of trying to figure out how to, they're really struggling with their shared services model. So they really wanted to hire somebody to help them work through that. It was originally proposed when they hired that person that they tackle the idea of considering consolidation as well as one of the options, because there's a lot of different ways that they could address that. They could even make their own unit district where they combine 67 and 115 on themselves. And so we tried to be involved in that, but they decided they wanted to go on their own for now. So as far as inserting ourselves, I don't know how that happens without ruffling too many feathers. You know, we need to be a team player and a partner and all that.
Mark, I don't want to stop the conversation, but I know this wasn't an official agenda item on our meeting for tonight. So I'm wondering if it would be good, since we just kind of gave an overview and it just came up this meeting on Thursday, to get individual input and then
Do that.
What do you mean by get individual input?
just if board members have any thoughts about the potential of District 65 standing up and offering support, or any other comment at their board meeting on Thursday, that maybe those be sent individually to Mark, and then.
Can we talk about it if it's not on the agenda? I mean, if it's not,
can,
I think we should.
We can have this. We've all, you know, I'm not sure if it's, I don't actually have the agenda in front of us, but we always have the opportunity to have a discussion in our board meetings. And
Okay.
we're not voting or taking action on anything. So I think we can talk about it.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure, because the only item that we have on our agenda is the return to learn update. So.
And you're right, but we do offer the opportunity for discussion. And if the board would like to weigh in on that, then I think they should, because we're not making there's no votes going on here, nothing like that. So.
Right. So to me, what the message potentially could be is not so much, you know, hey, we're here to support you. Presumably they know that. But maybe even a back channel message of, hey, you know, don't forget about us. We're here too. And as you consider what the future may look like, please have an open mind about how to loop Lake Bluff in with that. And in particular with this consulting arrangement, you know, let the consultant know that we're here, and maybe there's additional synergies or efficiencies that can be gained by including Lake Bluff in that model. So. I mean, that's different from consolidation, certainly, which is something we have discussed. And I'm not sure what the status of those discussions are. That sort of has evolved. It doesn't sound like we're talking about something on that magnitude now,
No.
But I would think that shared services is something that we should be top of their mind as they look at their model.
Yeah, the consolidation conversation has been, the big pause button was hit for that. So that's not going anywhere while they figure that out. And then the combination of them having to work through the issues, all the issues related to a new superintendent and an election where I think they have 8 potential new board members coming to between the two boards. There's a lot of change coming in town there. So anybody else have any perspective on that?
I second what Julie said. I mean, it's good to make certain that they clearly understand we want to be part of the discussion at some point down the road. Apparently, right now, they probably don't even know where they're going. So the best course of action might be to make them aware of that, and then to sit back and see what they're doing and see where we can take advantage of it.
The only thing I would, thanks, John. The only thing I would add is I want to make sure that we talk about it first before anything is said publicly about that. You know, this, in the time I've been on the board, this isn't something that's ever come up among just our board and board members. So I think I would feel much more comfortable understanding where our board as a whole was with even wanting shared services in the first place. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but I think it's worthy of a discussion, or maybe a future agenda item before we do anything with the other districts about it.
Yeah, I'm not sure that this presents an opportunity for us to be part of their specific contractual shared service agreement, but anything they do impacts us, and we have a perspective on that. So, and I'm not sure that they are really thinking about that right now.
Do we have any indication of any decisions they're going to make, or everything's up in the air right now? The reason I asked the question is that, you know, hiring a superintendent for District 67 doesn't really impact Lake Bluff kids, but for 115 it does, right? And so it's, I don't want to say appropriate's the right word, but certainly we would want to be more of a part of a conversation about 115 than 67. So if they're going to split, maybe we wait till there's a time to focus on 115.
To be clear, I listened to their committee meeting that occurred last week, and it was a rough presentation of what they're going to present to their combined boards Thursday night. They're going to refine it. but there was no hard and fast decision. What I think the consultant was leaning toward recommending was not blowing up the model, not splitting the districts, but shoring up the way they work shared services, because they're struggling with two different districts, two bosses for one superintendent. The two different boards have different, are going in different directions sometimes, and it's difficult for the soup and the administration to track along with that effectively. And so they're trying to, the consultant is currently saying something along the lines of let's stick with the current, let's fix what's in place now rather than blow everything up and start from something totally from scratch. That's what I'm hearing. It's not set in stone at all, and that meeting was very they're going to present different options to the entire boards, both boards combined. So
Gotcha.
it's just
I always think it's a good idea for our neighboring districts to know that we support them, but whether or not the timing is right to have that conversation, I don't have a strong opinion on it either way, I guess.
Anybody else?
I would think that we just kind of wait and let the dust settle a little bit before we get any more involved.
There is that perspective, which is very valid. There's a lot that they have to work through, not just related to shared services over the next 4 or 5 months. And there could be the perspective that we just kind of lay low and see where they land, and then dive in later. But
Yeah. I mean, I do see it a little bit differently, maybe a little bit differently, in that I do want to think we just want to let them know we're here. Again, more along a, hey, don't forget about us. We have a vested interest in this too, for all the reasons that have been stated. So just, we're here to support, but we would like to be kept informed to the extent that it affects 115 and hence affects us, or to the extent that you're looking at shared services beyond the superintendent, and there's opportunities for us to benefit from that. Again, I don't think that there's anything wrong with just simply having that reminder. Again, maybe that's been done already. I don't know, but sometimes I think they're off in their Lake Forest world, not thinking about Lake Bluff, and it's helpful to remind them that we're here, we're a constituency.
Julie, that's a good point, and I concur with that. I just can't quite figure out the right way to to get ourselves introduced into that.
well, there's a couple options. I could just send a note to board presidents and superintendents, or we can say something publicly at their meeting during their public comment session. Maybe it's just maybe a note.
I think just an email to those people, Mark, sounds like the better way to me to do it.
Okay.
And that
Or
opens up a whole dialogue too. Then they've got your email, they can respond, you've got that open line of communication as opposed to just a meeting or a comment among several at a meeting.
Okay.
I agree with that too.
Am I hearing consensus on that? That's just some written communication that we want to be involved to the extent possible?
Yeah, the only other thing I would say is we have 2 Lake Bluff residents on the 115 board, so maybe presidents is great, but maybe engaging those people because they would have a vested interest in Lake Bluff kids anyway.
They will receive the letter for sure. I've already spoken to Sally Davis briefly about it. So, okay. Any other thoughts or comments, questions on that? I will follow up. All right, so Lisa, sorry to get so sidetracked, but let's go to return to learn, and how are we going to get these kids back in school?
Problem. Thank you so much. I appreciate the conversation. I certainly will keep everyone posted on information that I get on that situation as well. So as everyone knows, we indicated that we would take an adaptive pause for the holidays based on staff and family surveys that we sent out about people gathering with folks outside of their homes. We did talk about the possibility of returning earlier than January 19th when we announced our pause that we're finishing up now. Our Return to Learn task force did meet last week, and for various reasons, we decided that we were more comfortable waiting and maintaining our original return date of January 19th. I did want to take a moment just to back us up a little bit and talk about how decision-making has evolved throughout this whole process. Obviously, as we've learned more about how this virus transmits, Our health departments have changed their guidance, which in turn changes things for us. And so these decisions have all evolved from March all the way until now, and they continue to evolve. As you remember, even early in the pandemic, we were talking about not touching our faces and really disinfecting surfaces and things like that, which now we know are not as effective. And the same has happened with our conversation around metrics and data regarding case counts and incidence rates and things like that. Early on in our decision making, we were focused very heavily on incidence rate and metrics and data that is on our Lake County Health Department dashboard. And at this point, the health departments have kind of shifted their focus towards, first of all, vaccination, which is great news, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but also thinking about ways that we do reduce and lower risk for our students and staff when they come back into our buildings. The CDC for a while has incorporated that as a metric of when we can return to learn. So in other words, what mitigation strategies have we invested in? What can we consistently implement effectively? And when we do a lot of those strategies, and we're able to do those things with fidelity, then we can lower risk even in an environment of substantial community transmission. So the CDC has had that opinion for a while. The Illinois Department of Health and the Lake County Health Department have sort of recently shifted away from the data and metrics that they've been using more towards what kinds of risk mitigation can districts do and how are they implementing them with fidelity and consistency, and have always emphasized local control and local decision making. So on their dashboard, which I'm going to share in a second, on their dashboard, they have always, or at least for a while, indicated a learning option that they felt was appropriate based on the metrics that they were seeing in the county. And some of those metrics are incidence rate. That was the main focus, which is, again, the number of positive cases out of the total population in Lake County. And so they had indicated for a while here in this spot, virtual learning indicated. And now, as you can see, they've changed that to say it's just a high risk. So they've shifted their focus to what is the risk associated with each of these metrics. And then again, still left it up to local districts to decide whether or not they feel like they can continue to implement risk mitigation strategies with fidelity and keep people safe, even in a high risk environment. So with incidence rate in Lake County, we're still at the highest risk level, around 36 per 100,000, because as you remember, the metric for substantial community transmission is 14 per 100,000, and we are at 36 approximately. They still are looking at hospital admissions rates, which are a little bit down, and they're indicating that metric would indicate a moderate or lower risk of transmission. And then testing turnaround time is also indicating a moderate risk of transmission. And then finally, when we look at our zip code data, we can see that we are also lower than the Lake County, than the county as a whole. So we have kind of up and down, and then we did have that great big spike around the holidays. And then we didn't see the spike we thought we would see after Thanksgiving, but we have seen some upticks and we're still kind of riding that wave. We are still above the 14 per 100,000 metric, but we are within the range now of bringing students back. And with this shift in the guidance, we feel pretty confident that we can bring back our students for trimester 2 with the mitigation strategies that we have in place, and we can lower the risk of transmission for students within our schools. So as you know, we are returning on the 19th with all of our students who would like to be with us in person and who chose that option. We feel comfortable that we can do that, lowering our risk. And we also are moving to a strategy of a more situational response when we do have staffing challenges or case counts are rising. So what that means is, as opposed to maybe shifting our entire school remote or our entire district remote for a pause, that we would focus more on if we have a problem in a classroom or we have a specific staffing issue, that we would move the smallest group remote at home that we could, so that we could maintain our in-person option as long as possible. I do want to emphasize that there will still probably be times that we encounter staffing challenges. We have not, none of the other guidance has changed. We still have quarantines there was an idea that we might be able to move to a 7 to 10 day quarantine as opposed to 14 days. That is not being endorsed by the Lake County Health Department at all. They are still recommending 14-day quarantines for anyone who's been in close contact. So we do anticipate that there might be times and situations where we'll have to shift small groups to remote, but we are focused on trying to keep those as small groups as possible, mitigate the issue, and get kids back. I do want to take a pause here for a second and just highlight a group of parents and community members that I think really need a big thank you. We do have a group of parents who have decided to remain remote for the remainder of the year. And I just want to thank that group, because we would not be able to offer the in-person option that we can without their commitment to keeping their students remote at home. It is a tremendous time commitment. It can be tremendously stressful. Speaking as a mom who's been doing it nonstop since March, it is not easy. And we are doing the best we can to support our families who are at home. We appreciate that choice. I know the rest of the community appreciates that choice. And I think sometimes we forget that our options are only available because a portion of our community has agreed to do that. So I do want to thank them for continuing with that option. And please reach out to us with whatever support you need. So when we do return, we are going to be implementing an additional mitigation strategy, and that's temperature checks at school. That is one of the strategies that we did not implement in the fall. We did not do that because we felt that the self-certification would be sufficient. I think in this time, when we know we're still having risks of high community transmission, it will make everyone feel better if we can implement that kind of final strategy that we've had waiting for us. We know that there could be asymptomatic individuals, don't have a fever, potentially still are positive, and it won't catch those kids. But it will help us in terms of just checking in with each student every day, making sure kids are feeling okay, and giving us another opportunity just to make sure that everyone's healthy, everyone's feeling good before the school day starts. I do want to address one more piece of mitigation that we have not done, and that's testing on site. There are some other school districts who are going back with a testing option on site, and I want to address that because we are not considering that in Lake Bluff. The testing that would be available to us is diagnostic testing, and that would be only for symptomatic individuals. If a student or staff member became symptomatic at school or even at home, and we decided to provide a rapid or antigen test, which is what we would have, if that individual tested negative, we would not be able to take that as a test result that we could trust. If the symptomatic individual tested negative, we would actually have to send them for a molecular or PCR test to confirm that result. And so that would result in 2 tests for every symptomatic individual that showed up negative on the antigen test. Of course, if the staff or student was positive, we would take that as a positive result and they would go ahead and quarantine. We would not be able to use those antigen tests for surveillance. Those are only for diagnostics. So we would not be able to, for instance, give the rapid test to everyone and catch asymptomatic individuals who might be positive. We cannot use a rapid test for that reason. And so for that reason, knowing that we would still have to confirm negative tests with another test, we felt like it was okay for us to continue with the system that we have. When people are symptomatic, they go home, they get the PCR test, they come back with their results, we can trust it, and then we move on from there. Are there any questions on any of that before I move on to kind of our plans for the future and what we're working on now?
How was that received by your Return to Learn committee when you kind of came to that conclusion?
About the testing in particular, or the return dates?
In general, yeah. Both points.
I mean, I would say, first of all, if you haven't had a chance to log into those meetings, they're very informative. It's a really great group of honest and prepared people, 2 of which are on the meeting right now. There's mixed feelings about returning in a time when we definitely still have community transmission happening. Our staff are a little bit anxious. They, certainly want to stay safe, make sure that we implement all our mitigation strategies with fidelity. I think that if we had an option for large scale surveillance testing, that might be appreciated. But knowing that what we could do would be this diagnostic test, and then we would be kind of sending people away for more testing, and that seems like a lot. So again, there's no one right decision in this situation that's going to fit and is going to feel good to everyone. But I do think that waiting until the 19th, kind of giving everyone the full 2 weeks after break, knowing that everyone's had a chance to quarantine, and then coming back with some additional strategies has felt good to folks.
Thanks.
So moving forward, in the future, we obviously have some really bright spots ahead of us. The vaccination, we have talked about. Lake County is highly organized. For folks who have not gone onto the All-Vax system to register themselves, please do so. We have our teachers registered as educators. We have had our first staff member begin her vaccination journey, 1 dose. Our nurse can be considered a healthcare frontline worker, and so they were moved to the head of the line, which is awesome. They seem to be very organized, efficient, and when folks are ready, when those next doses are ready, people get an email to schedule an appointment, and it seems to be going very, very well. We are investigating in Lake County closed pods for our educators coming out of 2 of our Lake County high schools. So Stevenson High School and Round Lake High School are working with the Lake County Health Department to organize closed pod vaccinations for all educators and staff members in Lake County, which is fantastic. We still believe educators are in phase 1B. We think we'll
So
be
what does that mean, closed pod?
So essentially, the general population, or whatever phase we're in, the population that is being vaccinated can go to one of a few sites in Lake County for open appointments and things like that. These closed pods would just be for educators. And so it kind of streamlines the process, and we would actually be offering our own staff to help with the administering of the vaccination. So school nurses in Lake County who have been vaccinated will be trained to give the vaccinations, and we can hopefully move the process along quicker for our educators and staff members, which is really, really great news. And we are so thankful to Stevenson High School and Round Lake High School and their communities for offering their space, their parking lots, and their organizational skills to work with the health department for that. We have heard that there are minimal side effects. Because the question is whether or not, when staff are available to go ahead and get the vaccine, do we need to stagger it so that, if there are side effects, we don't lose all of our staff members at once calling in sick. And we have heard that there are minimal side effects, which is great. And again, we're looking to begin that within the next couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, which is really, really great news. Knowing that our special populations, including our students, are still not a part of the vaccination schedule, though, that means that things are definitely not going to be getting back to normal immediately because we're doing these vaccinations. I don't see our mitigation efforts really, or our guidance around mitigation really changing that much in the near future. And the key mitigation strategy, that's the one that really impacts our ability to get back to normal, is 6 feet between individuals. And at this point, given that kids will not be able to be vaccinated, and I'm not hearing from the health department that there's any talk of reducing that 6-foot guidance. And what that does for us is it really kind of continues to put us in the same spot in terms of how many students we can have in at once. And so given that information, our administrative team is already talking about what our options could be in the fall if we're still in that spot. I'm personally optimistic. We're still watching, hopeful that maybe we can get down to a 3 to 6, which would really help us at 3 to 6 feet as opposed to 6. But we're talking about different scenarios because we're anticipating that after a full year of this and summer, we're going to have a lot more families that are going to want to have their kids with us. And I also anticipate that we'll still need to offer a remote option for those families who don't want to participate in school education. So we're brainstorming ideas. We're walking through different scenarios. We're looking at how different districts have handled this. And we will be talking this through with the task force in the coming weeks. And so again, I cannot emphasize enough how much the task force has been a helpful resource to our administrative team and our decision-making. Again, we have 2 board members, parents, teachers, staff, and administrators on that team. I did a little bit of data analysis for the board last week. We've had over 20 return to learn task force meetings since before my official start date. We started on June 18th, and those meetings have been viewed over 4,000 times. So that tells me our community's engaged, they're invested, they're watching, and hopefully that's a helpful resource. I'm incredibly proud of the honesty that folks have shown in those meetings. It is not easy to stand up and kind of have an opinion, and especially when you're being streamed live on YouTube, as we all know, right, in a board meeting. So I just want to, again, thank that group for being a part of our journey, and we will continue to collaborate with them in decision making. And finally, we are looking at opportunities for summer learning for our students. I'm starting to get a history on how summer school and summer learning opportunities have been organized in Lake Bluff, different ways that we've organized it. I think our community would be interested in some options for summer. So we are talking with some of our teachers. As an administrative team, we're talking about what we might be able to offer in terms of continued learning opportunities for students. And that's something that we will also continue to talk as a board and administrative team about in the coming weeks. Any other questions on return to learn before I bring up one more item?
I would
No,
just say
thanks.
thank you to your team, the return to learn participants, everybody on that. That's a lot of work, and to get community involvement like that is terrific. And thank you to all those folks who put in the hours and logged the time and are now permanently embedded on YouTube for the rest of time. But it is appreciated because it's helped a lot. So thanks.
Yeah, and I would be remiss if I didn't always say our teachers are really tremendous and have adapted to this situation in a way that I wouldn't have even anticipated that they could have. They really have created a situation where it's seamless to be in or out of school, and everyone's getting similar opportunities, and we're continuing to move forward with learning. So that's just amazing, and it all has to do with our staff. So one thing that we have definitely talked about is that communication is important through this process. We've tried to be really transparent, as I've talked about, with our task force and different communications. One part of the community that doesn't always get into all that communication is our community members who don't have students still in the school system. And so I do want to address one change, is that we have been involved in a community-wide newsletter with the Village and Park District and the school district for some time that I think has been very well received. I have found out that we are going to be scaling back on that to 2 times a year, March and September. And I think it has to do with some shifting village priorities and different things. I did want to just bring it to everyone's attention because I think it's been really well received. I think it's a great way to get information to those folks who maybe aren't on our email lists and who are not getting the school communications. And so I just wanted to bring it to your attention. If we want to think about some interim communications that are printed, that go home into people's mailboxes in between March and September, it might be a good idea for us to talk about that. I personally think that those are very helpful, and I think it brings the community together in a way that's good for our district and good for everyone. So I would love feedback on that issue if we want to talk about it, but it does pertain to return to learn, because I think a lot of people have been interested in that discussion and have been interested in the updates. And I think those hard copy and printed versions of that information is sometimes very helpful.
Yeah, I would strongly support that. As obviously a person without kids into school, we still pay taxes, and we still like to know how our money's invested and what progress we're making as part of the community toward educating young people. So I would strongly support that incremental communication.
I agree with John. I've gotten so much feedback over the years about I think we call it the tri-district newsletter, the 3 boards that report. It has been so well received, and the fact that unfortunately it has to be scaled back, not because of us, but other budget constraints and other tax districts, is disappointing. But I do think it's important to keep up the communication because people have really benefited from it. So I support it as well. So heads are nodding, I think, Lisa.
Sounds good. Yeah, I I like the three boards and the one communication. If they're scaling back, I see the value in us continuing forward. And
I think
that's all.
ours can be shorter. I think ours can be maybe a smaller version of something that looks similar. So it kind of has the same feel, but just a little bit scaled back and obviously focused on our organization and the issues that are most pertinent to the community. A finance update, strategic plan update, hot topics kind of thing. But I think it might be appreciated to continue on that cadence.
Especially as we continue with some odd years and novel issues. So that sounds good.
And Julie can continue as an editor. I mean, she's always available.
You did not see my hand up for that.
Anything else to discuss tonight?
No,
Anybody-
we can investigate some options and then start to work on that.
Anybody on the board have anything they want to raise?
No, thanks. I appreciate this meeting. It was a good update. Thanks, Lisa.
Is there any, let me check to see if there's any hands raised in our chat room. I don't see it. Have we got any other written correspondence since? Probably not, right?
No public comment.
Okay. If I will say with authority though today that if anybody does have public comment, our emails are available on the website, even though we've been misleading people for a while now on that. I apologize. We thought they were there. So you can always reach out to your favorite board member and share what you would like to share with the board. So if I don't hear anything else, I will ask for a motion to adjourn at 7:43 p.m.
So moved.
Second,
Can you please take the roll, Shelley? Not the
Mark
roll. but-
Berry?
yeah.
Mark Berry,
Yes.
Julie Gutfeld,
Yes.
John Morozin,
yes.
Andy Duran,
Yes.
Richard Hegg,
Yes.
and Paul.
Yes.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Happy New Year. Stay safe.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
See
Good
you
night.
all.
Good night.
Here.